Hello everyone, it's Nick here with Nick Tolman Music, and today we're going to go ahead and continue our beginner guitar lesson series using Mel Bay's Modern Guitar Method, Grade 1. Today's lesson is going to be focused on page 18. This page is going to be a continuation of our last lesson. It's going to have one exercise that focuses on drilling those new notes that we learned, which are A, B, and C, all located on the 5th string. And then it has two great exercises of some common folk tunes that you may have heard that utilize notes across the top 5 strings that we have learned so far. Let's go ahead and get started. So the first exercise is called quarter notes. It's going to use all downstrokes with our right hand, and it's going to focus just on our new notes, A, B, and C. As usual, I'm going to set the metronome to 72. 1, 2, ready, and play. Alright, so that's that. It's quarter notes, it's using those 3 notes, A, B, and C. Now something that might come up as you're experimenting with notes on the 5th string, you may notice that reaching down to the lower strings, and when I say lower, I'm talking about lower in pitch, right? So this string here, the 6th string, is the low E string, the top string is here, the high E. But as you reach down for these lower strings, you may have to reach a little bit more, okay? If you haven't seen my video on how to hold your guitar, please check it out. I talk about avoiding tension in the left hand, right? So you might be tempted to really strain your wrist as you reach around to these lower strings. That's not ideal, okay? The idea is that you want to try to stay nice and relaxed. My whole hand works as a unit, okay? And in that video we talked about placing your left thumb on the back of the neck, and that's not necessarily cemented in, right? It's not always going to be in one place. It's free to move, and as I move to lower strings, my thumb might come up more. You can see it actually poking up the top to allow my hand to move without having to do this number, okay? Now that being said, adjusting your elbow can also help with this, okay? So if your elbow's out here, it's going to be harder to reach around, but if your elbow moves more inward, you can see that it naturally brings fingers upward to these lower pitched strings, okay? It's important to avoid tension. If you catch yourself really straining with your wrist bent like that, try to avoid that and see what else you can do to accomplish getting to these notes without having to do that. Alright, let's try this same exercise at 120 on the metronome. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, play. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next exercise, Buffalo Gals. We'll start it at 72 like usual. I'll play the melody for you, and then I will play the chords so you can play along. And then we'll do the same thing at 120. Here we go, at 72. 1, 2, ready, and play. Rest. So this is a great one. It's not too challenging. Some of the earlier exercises that we've done were actually a little bit more challenging, but it's really good. It works up and down the notes that we've been focusing on, and great melody to play. Here are the chords so you can play along. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, ready and play. Great job. Alright, so before we do our next exercise, I'm going to remind you of a couple practice techniques that are going to help you through these exercises. I've said them before and I'll continue to remind you of them, but there's a few techniques that I want you to remember. So the first one, and we're going to continue to call it this, is isolating. Okay? So isolating is a practice technique that I use all the time, and that is isolating the problem areas. The idea behind isolating is that you don't always practice the things that you're already good at. You focus your efforts and your time on the things that are giving you the most trouble. Isolating is key to helping you get better. If you always play the things that you're good at already, you're never going to progress and improve as a player. Isolate the things that are challenging, whatever those might be, and practice those. Now, in a song like what we just played, it might be a specific measure. Maybe you're noticing that every time you go to a certain note, you always have a problem. Finding these issues and isolating them can help you determine what things you need to practice the most. The next practice technique that you're going to hear me talk about a lot, and I've already talked about it in previous lessons, is chunking. Chunking is the idea that you take small chunks, you practice those small chunks, and then you put chunks together, slowly making bigger chunks, right? So you might practice just the first measure and loop it over and over again. Maybe you play it 20 times to get it just right. And then you do the same thing for the second measure. And then you put those two measures together, and now you have a bigger chunk that you can play well. And you slowly add on to that chunk, or you maybe work on another chunk, and then you put those chunks all together. This is more effective than just always starting at the beginning and trying to go all the way through. I guarantee that if you're doing that method, that there's going to be problems in the middle or toward the end that get neglected because you always start at the beginning. Isolating and chunking. These are really good practice methods that you can use to help you be effective on these exercises. Okay, let's go ahead and listen to Buffalo Gals at 120. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, play. Here are the chords so you can play along. Still at 120. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, play. Great job. Let's go and take a look at Chester. It's our next exercise in this book. I'm going to start at 72 and play the melody for you at that tempo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, ready and play. It's a beautiful melody. If you haven't heard this tune before, look up some arrangements. There's some really great versions of Chester out there. Great folk song. Alright, so here are the chords to go along with Chester at 72. 1, 2, ready and go. Nice. Let's do this a little faster tempo. I'm not going to take it all the way to 120 because it's kind of atypical for this song. Again, you can go faster if you would like, but we're going to try it at 100. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, ready, play. Here are the chords of Chester at 100. Feel free to play along. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready and play. Nicely done. You've really done a great job getting this far in the book. Please continue to practice. Please continue to take your time on each page to make sure that you are mastering every exercise before you move on. This will help to ensure that your fundamentals in playing are solid before you take on more difficult music. Thank you for tuning in today. As always, please subscribe. If you enjoyed today's content, please check out my Patreon page and stay tuned for our next guitar lesson.